Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 1999, when I was in class 7, an infamous hit and run case took place in the national capital. It has gone down in memory in Delhi as the BMW hit and run case. It happened in central Delhi near Lodi Road, where a car driven by young people, a BMW car, hit, people died, they ran away. The reason, of course, it became infamous because it was uncommon. It was only the very privileged, super rich who drove around in BMWs. I've seen, you've seen India change. You go around in Bombay, go around in Delhi, you are now seeing Porsches and Lamborghinis, and you're seeing Rolls Royces. In just the past few weeks, we have seen pretty much a teenager going to a bar, drinking, getting into a 2 crore rupee Porsche car, hitting a bike, 2 people dead. And now you've seen an incident that has just taken place in Mumbai, where this time another BMW rams into a scooter in which there's a couple. It drags the scooter for almost 100 yards, and I'm told the woman riding at the back of the scooter has now died. Makes you think, made me think today, that when I was growing up in the Fiat and Maruti 800 generation, there were no seat belts. I remember a Supreme Court order came out and we had to specially go and get seat belts, and the concept of seat belts was started that you get a seat belt installed in your Maruti 800. Maruti 800 was a very light car, 800cc engine. You can get Mobikes today that have 800cc engines, and you could drive a Maruti fast, but after about 70, 80, let's face it, the car started rattling and shaking and losing its aerodynamic capacity. Cars today have become safer, they've become heavier, they've become faster. The amount of research in automotive safety, probably unparalleled. You can parallel it maybe to airline safeties. There are crumple zones, there are airbags, there are anti-lock brakes, there's safety glass there. Not just the seat belt, roll cages, side impact bars. So much evolution has happened that you see case after case of these high-end cars, nothing much happens to the person driving the car, but the person on the two-wheeler faces injury or death, because two-wheelers safety technology is 2000 years old. It's called a helmet. There are various complications here. It's a class divide. If you are rich enough to afford a car, you are safer while driving on the streets, even if you're in an accident. If you can't afford one and you're driving in a Mobike or a bicycle, by definition, you are less safe. Let's jump in and ask the question why. Vinkesh Gulati is joining us. He's chairman of the FADA. Tutu Dhawan is with us, who works in the auto sector, and Sirajuddin Ali joining us on the broadcast as well. Mr. Dhawan, if I can quickly begin with you, It's a truism to say that cars today are safer than they were 20 or 30 years ago. There has been a revolution in car safety. I think things that was an add-on, I mentioned seat belts in my generation, but now are standards. Forget seat belts, airbags, crumple zones have all become standards. You and I are much safer in the cars we drive. What about Mobike, sir?
That's a joke. Mobike, poor people, the only thing that they have got to save themselves is an ABS system, and sometimes even that is a single channel. And now, of course, with technology improving a little bit, there is a stabilizing system also that's being incorporated. But that's again on a high-end bike, not on the normal 100cc, 150cc bike.
So, Mr. Gulati, then comes the obvious question, that we've seen case after case. Look at the Porsche case. Nothing happened to the people in the car, even though they were the ones speeding 100 kilometers, maybe faster. So the cars on the street have become faster. The people are less afraid because their cars are better engineered and are safer, but what about the people outside, the pedestrians and the people on two-wheelers?
So practically, I'll tell you what has happened. India is one of the biggest two-wheeler market. And if we see how the safety norms have changed in car, that is how we have followed the Western countries because they were more advanced. And being the two-wheeler market, I feel we have to be the pioneers of getting safety norms coming in two-wheeler, which we haven't done the research so much. I feel now is the time when the industry associations, government, all have to put together their minds, do an R&D and work out how can we be safe even in two-wheelers. So there are a lot of things like today when you drive a car and if you don't use a seat belt, there is a regular beep sound. Or even if you are driving more than 80 kilometers, there is a beep sound. But similarly, there is nothing in two-wheelers. Why can't be there be helmets which are linked to the engine being switched on in a two-wheeler, that if the helmet is locked and the helmet is near the bike, then only the bike starts. Or a bike, if goes above 80 kilometer or a 60 kilometer, depending upon the size, a beep sound regularly comes. So I
Okay,
feel
but Mr. Gulati,
somewhere
but
the regulations are missing here.
other than a helmet, is it by engineering, is anything practically possible? Because a car has a roll cage, a crumple zone. You are safer in a car. But is there anything practically possible with two-wheelers?
It is, but we'll have to do a lot of research. We'll have to see how a two-wheeler is made in a way, like Tutu sir said, there are vehicles now which are coming with stability. We'll have to see how the vehicles, once they go through an accident, because while driving fast, if something touches, not even cars, even if a roadside some stone get touched, the bike doesn't fall on the left or the right side, and stability is there. We'll have to research on that and then make standards how the bikes are made in the India.
Okay, so we have the other irony, and let me get Mr. Ali into this. Mr. Ali, two-wheelers in this country, since we are evolving away from scooters per se and into mobikes, are not just an individual out there who's doing it for fun. It's daily commute. There are families on these bikes. It's much different to what the biking industry is in Europe or it is in America, where it's not necessarily just a transportation thing where people have cars. It's more of a entertainment or a hobby thing. Given it's such a necessity for people, what do we do? What is possible in a two-wheeler to make you safer?
So, as Mr. Vinkesh and Mr. Tutu has clearly mentioned that the focus toward two-wheeler improvement on the safety front is not as good as it is for the four-wheeler. And though India, considering a socio-economy of our country and different parameter wherein most of the people, it is the highest selling vehicle in terms of any type of engines which are there.
Correct.
So if I consider almost more than 1 CR two-wheelers are being sold out in India every year, whereas cars are almost 5 million. So it is double than the number of the cars which are primarily now people are improving their social economy. But in terms of safety and other parameter, focus is not there. And as you rightly said, in India, it is not hobby. It is not a kind of passion people are following. This is a necessity, and there are places like Pune and B class cities where two-wheeler are the primary mode of communication, means mode of commuting from one place to another, means 100 of kilometers people used to travel on these. So only engineering and disruption in innovation can only support people to make the this mobilization more safer.
Okay. Let me get Mr. Dhawan back in. Mr. Dhawan, because it's a truism, I mentioned at the beginning that cars have evolved, right? The cars was in the beginning it was a horse buggy with a motor. Now you have crash testing and so many things, to everything possible to help you survive a car crash, even if you are the one causing it. So what do we tell to people out there who are in their millions still having to buy two-wheelers? Not only for personal transport, but for their entire families. You have a husband, a wife, children, all on two-wheelers. Are they inherently, is there something can be done to make it safer? Mr. Dhawan.
Yeah, actually speaking, you see, a two-wheeler is a family cheapest way of traveling. And today in India, especially when you can get a two-wheeler starting from 40,000-50,000 rupees going up to 1.5 lakh, where a family can be traveling on it. Plus also during office days, you could be using it for office and back. But unfortunately, there is nothing to prevent the pillion and the rider from any accident that could happen other than just the helmet. But yes, of course, there are other things that one should do, which is of course a part of the Motor Vehicle Act, and that is to wear safety gear as well. But who cares? Today in our country, I don't think there are more than 2% people who actually care about wearing safety features on a rider. Especially, the people riding with chappals and with sandals, that is absolutely a no-no, even in the Motor Vehicle Act. You have to wear shoes to be able to, ankle-high shoes, to be able to at least save your feet from getting injured. So like this, there are certain rules that you have to follow, which nobody does. But now, let me tell you further, there are research and developments going on where they are trying to find stability factor on a two-wheeler. Even if it is hit on a side or something, it would not topple over. These are happening, but yet, then again, the question is affordability. Now, who all can be able to afford that? There is an airbag also that is being designed and being manufactured for a two-wheeler. But then again, who all can afford it? So it's a catch-22 situation for the time being. And we in India especially, where our major mode of conveyance is a two-wheeler, pan-India. And if you look at the comparison between sales of four-wheelers and two-wheelers,
yes,
two-wheelers are some 3 to 4 times more.
Mr. Dhawan, what do we advise people? Because purchase price is a big hindrance factor. Like I mentioned, it's a class thing. On affordability, then of course running costs. A two-wheeler will give you 40-50 kilometers a liter. A car, if you're lucky, you'll get less than 10. So what do we advise people, especially those with children and family, for whom the two-wheeler remains a mode of construct? Because in an accident, the people inside the car, very likely that they will walk away without a scratch. But you're seeing case after case of the people on a two-wheeler, they're dying.
Well, the only thing that you can do for yourself is safety, and safety is to wear proper, clothing and proper gadgets on yourself to be able to save yourself. Like you see a rider who is a professional rider, look at his leathers that he wears. Of course, you can well imagine. Not everybody can wear those leathers, but at least one can wear knee guards, elbow guards, a chest guard, a good helmet, and a good helmet with an intercom that you can talk to the pillion also. So these sort of things can, at least if not anything else, save some people from getting fatally injured.
Now that's of course single drivers. But let me get Mr. Gulati. And Mr. Gulati, then what do we advise people out there, who are aspirational? They can't wait to go and buy their Mobike. It's an aspirational thing to own a Mobike in this country still. You're migrating, and it's a sense of family mobility. Is there an option out there? Can you go and buy second-hand vehicles that, even if they don't give you the right mileage, but are cost competitive, and at the same time, definitely a lot safer than a two-wheeler?
So Rishabh, fact is right. Whenever anybody upgrades from a two-wheeler, the first choice is a used Maruti. And it had been, like you were talking 20 years back, it's been that way since ages, and it is the right point of situation today. But on the other hand, two-wheelers are safer. No doubt for the past some time we are listening about these fatalities happening. I'm sure if people take care about which helmet to wear and how they are wearing that helmet and driving safely, these incidences will reduce. Obviously, there are rare occasions which will happen. But yes, there are a lot of second-hand options today, starting from 1 lakh to 3 lakh rupees, because now bikes have also coming at 80, 90,000, 40,000, 60,000. I don't feel there is a good bike there. Those are again second-hand. But you go to the market today, the entry price of even 100cc bike is now 70,000 and a good bike is 1 lakh. I feel you can get a good used car for that price if you don't have to drive on the highways and all that, and that is safe.
Okay.
But whatever be the case be, you will have to abide by the traffic norms, by the rules, wear helmet, or even in car seat belt, because safety first is your importance, and then outside, then the
Yeah, so
restrictions.
the thing,
That is where
so
we lose a lot.
especially think about if you have a family, you might want to consider a used car option where your car gets damaged, so be it, but at least there is no loss of life or limb. Now, let me then flip the question around with Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, on the other side, we are seeing a whole generation of people now who have access to these high torque, high power cars with big engines. Okay, it is in this generation that we are seeing that the BMWs, the Mercedes, the Audis, the Porsches, you name it, are all readily available in India. They've gone into the used car market. You can buy a maybe 10, 15-year-old BMW for just a few lakh rupees. So a lot of power is available. The cars are larger in some cases. The cars are much heavier in some cases. So when it comes to people driving these cars, okay, which is a lot different than driving 10, 15 years ago, how do people who purchase these cars need to understand that their acceleration, their 0 to 60 time, everything is changed, and therefore, the temptation to drive them faster should not come?
So you're absolutely right. Means nowadays, now due to growing economy and our purchasing power in across the India, the access to the high-end vehicles are very well possible. And considering the fact these vehicles are not only being accessed by people who are having responsibility, but by the kids also. And I would not directly blame parents or someone, because that is the way the society is moving. And once the person who is having not responsible enough, and he is driving such mammoth vehicles, there are chances that they lose their control and they causes big and fatal accidents, like Porsche accident that we saw in recent past and BMW accident we saw. And if I go by the thing, like not only big vehicles, even smaller vehicle also can create a bigger impact if you are driving two-wheeler. So all said and done, but the safety for the two-wheelers has to be improved.
Okay.
In terms of the gadgets, in terms of the safety gears, in terms of the airbags, if they can be pulled into.
Okay, I agree. So, so my first part of the conversation is, if you're on a two-wheeler in 200 years, other than the helmet, what's your safety gear? Okay, it's limited. That's the answer. We can argue that there is some technology available, but let's be realistic. If you're a G-Wagon or a Porsche or a BMW is hitting your Mobike, nothing is happening to the person inside the car. It's the person on the two-wheeler that is risking life. So let me get Mr. Dhawan in. Mr. Dhawan, our cars have changed. Our infrastructure, not necessarily inside the cities, has changed. You still see there are no dedicated bicycle lanes. There are people on the footpaths. There are people sometimes sitting there. Sometimes people are walking on the roads because the footpath doesn't exist. So for people buying these faster, easier to accelerate, heavier, more expensive cars, how do they need to understand safe driving?
You see, it's a very unfortunate thing that people have to have nothing else as an option but to buy a two-wheeler. You see, when you start comparing yourself with foreign countries where the transport system is so good that two-wheelers are basically used for pleasure and for recreation. But here it is a necessity, because our transport system does not meet up with the requirements that we have, families traveling together, old people also wanting to travel and things like that. So it's basically our infrastructure which makes one to go and buy a two-wheeler. And when you have to buy a two-wheeler, the only option left with you is to have proper safety gear and also adhere to safety conditions as much as you can.
Mr. Dhawan, what about the generation of car drivers? The people who are now, driving BMWs and Mercedes that accelerate faster, they're heavier cars, so they have much bigger momentum. These things are novel in this country, but the infrastructure, our pedestrian footpaths, our bike lanes, they don't exist. So what about the people who are buying these expensive cars?
You see, it's unfortunate, to be able to compare now or trying to condemn the affluent who can afford all these things, and their children not being able to distinguish between good and bad and trying to discipline themselves. You will already must have noticed that there is so much of disgruntlement today amongst the youth that they dare, nobody can dare even tell them no. So they go back and they go back at you. So it's basically the upbringing of such people, that you have to inculcate this sort of sense of responsibility from the parent side and from the education side to be able to make them good citizens where they would also respect the other people who are not so affluent and who don't have the wherewithal.
Okay, because the reality is that if you go out in Bombay, for example, the roads are going to be crowded. You might be having the most expensive BMW, but there will be people walking on the streets. The footpaths are going to be congested. Mr. Gulati, I'll quickly leave the last word with you. In a practical sense, for people who are buying these faster, heavier, more powerful cars, okay, which accelerate, 0 to 60 in a few seconds. Electric cars are coming up, which are really heavy and have even faster acceleration times. What do we need to tell a new generation of people who can afford these cars about their responsibility to the two-wheelers, to the cyclist, to the pedestrian?
So, Rishabh, basically, see, this is the future. You will have faster cars, faster two-wheelers. You will have Gen X, Gen Z who want to reach faster. But I feel there are places for this. So highways are there where you can drive fast. The cities are not there. Whatever accidents we have seen for the past, you will see it has happened in the odd hours of the day, in the night when there wasn't any traffic. And because of the empty roads, the speed was faster. I feel implementing the speed control somewhere in the city, the government's vigilance on how to control that, and a common sense being put in these youngsters that you have roads where the speed limits are 100 and 120, where you can use that. But in city, at least they should not go above 60 and take care about pedestrians and the two-wheeler also. Because within city, you cannot use 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or 4 seconds.
So I'm out of time, but for people watching the broadcast, okay, I want you to remember that the large percentage of your country is still two-wheeler bound. Okay? So if you have the privilege and the luxury of owning a car, let alone a German engineered expensive car, you need to be worrying about your own safety. But you feel confident that I've got the airbags, I've got my anti-lock brakes, now I've got, anti-collision systems, then I'm safe. But you have to understand that your country is still on two-wheelers and there is no engineering available, very little technology available other than a helmet for them. I thank my guests.